Welcome to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Corey Sickles, proud to represent the dedicated team here at Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you'd like more information about what is shared on today's show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Simply give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. While you're exploring our website, make sure you check out that radio page. There you can catch up on previous episodes and easily subscribe to our program via popular podcast platforms such as Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, or Spotify. For videos covering a variety of financial topics, feel free to visit our YouTube page. Just search for Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Also, you can watch today's Financially Fit Radio show on YouTube under our podcast playlist as well. We're here to address any inquiries you may have or to schedule either an in-person or virtual meetings at your convenience. It's important to note that all of our meetings are complimentary and come with no obligation. Your financial well-being is our top priority, so please let us know how we can best assist you. And thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to being a valuable resource on your journey to financial success or financial fitness. So today we're going to talk about avoiding Social Security mistakes. It's one of the biggest things that we actually discuss with clients. It's the foundation of building an income plan. So we have a lot of good, insights on what you really need to think about and things to avoid. But before we dive into that, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you today?
Corey, I'm doing great. I'm over here just loving life. Winter is finally here, but doing well, keeping warm and enjoying, the end of the NFL football season. We were talking about that a little bit before the show, watching some games. Yeah. Looks like the Browns are in for sure. But other than that, busy with work, just trying to stay on top of everything. I'm glad we're talking about this topic today, though, because it is huge. Like you say, it's the foundation. But first, how are you doing? What have you been up to, Corey?
I'm just trying to bring in the new year, Tony.
Yep.
It's we're actually quite busy right now with a lot of first appointments with prospects, hopefully eventually clients coming in through the door as well. But really January and February and really going into March it's a pretty busy time of the year for us. Sure. People are New Year's resolutions, people were trying to get all their finances in order, or what's taking place, we have quite a few clients that are going to be retiring this quarter as well. It's a popular time. February is really popular once those bonuses get paid out. They want to make sure they're going to be able to get all that for 2023 as well. But obviously, Social Security it's a big part of what we do when we start developing income plans for clients. You can't talk about income planning without talking about Social Security. And if we really go back and think about it, I think you have to kind of go back and, what was the main purpose for Social Security? And, when they originally designed that, it was to be able to have some type of income in retirement. At that point in time, back in the 30s, when this was actually launched early, it didn't, it was passed in the 30s, but it didn't really take place until, the early 40s. But, what it really was designed to do was to help people that were retiring to stay out of poverty. That was the true one of the true benefits of it. And the other part of it, Tony, was also we wanted to have some type of security for widows and orphans. Back at that point in time, you have to, usually only had one person working, and if that person happened to pass first, then it left the spouses with no money. So that was really kind of the purpose of it. And of course, disability insurance was a part of that as well if you couldn't work. So, those were the main purposes of it. I don't think it was ever designed, expect to be, 100% of your income in retirement. And I know, a lot of people, it's a large percentage of it, and the one thing I would probably say, the smaller amount that you can make Social Security part of that annual income for you, you're going to be in a better situation. There's all kind of negative things. How long is it going to last? Things like that. But until some of those things are actually, we really know what those rules or law changes might end up being. We have to work with it, and we have to work within the concept the way it works today.
Well, yeah, and Corey, like you say, it was never meant to be 100% of your retirement income, and the more additional income you have outside of Social Security, the better, and that's where you come in. You help people figure out that and plan for that to make sure. And a lot of people end up retiring, and they might have a 401k or an IRA, and then their Social Security. But you put it great at the beginning of the show. It's the foundation of your retirement income. And people say, why? It might be a small percentage for me. And it's the foundation because it's money you know will be there every month. You're going to know the amount going in, and so that you're going to get every month. And you need that money is so important. It's like when you build a house, the most important part of the house is the foundation. You can always replace the roof or redo a door frame or replace a window, but you can't replace the foundation. That has to be done right, and you have to maintain that and make sure it's going to last. The same with your retirement income. You have to have a certain amount that you know will be there every month to cover your basic costs in retirement. And that way, everything on top of that, you can leave in growth or other things and use for the fun stuff. But that Social Security is so important, and the majority of Americans, almost all Americans, rely on Social Security for at least part of their retirement income. If not, like you said, some rely on a pretty big percentage, and you want to lessen that percentage that you rely on, is what you're saying.
That's exactly right. And let's kind of talk about some of the things you should be doing when we start talking about Social Security. And really, the first one that you should do is you should actually check every year. Pull that. Now you have to log on to the web, the SSA.gov, but you should go in and check to make sure that they actually have your earnings correct, because it's up to you to make sure that they are correct. Now, why would there possibly be errors with, maybe when you actually log in and it's not correct? One is the employer might actually have had an error when they actually uploaded your W-2 information. That's one possible way. Another very common one is a name change. Maybe you were married. Now it doesn't match. Maybe it's not actually being entered the correct way. So here's the deal when we start talking about it. If it's incorrect, you have 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days to correct it. If not, it's locked in and you can't go back and change it.
Wow.
So that's why it's so important to make sure, because the way Social Security works, Tony, is they take your top 35 years in during your working. That's the way it comes up with your calculation. And anytime that you don't have if you don't have 35 years, maybe you only have 30, then those 5 years that you're missing are going to be zeros. So what you need to understand is that's why it's so important to make sure that it is correct, because later on when you do retire, you're going to receive a monthly benefit based upon the number of years that you have worked and the amount of money that you have earned during those times as well. So again, I'd highly recommend to go out to SSA.gov, set up your username and password. You can go out every year to find out to make sure your earnings are correct. Match that with your W-2 or your taxes, just to make sure that it is accurate.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned taxes; they play a huge part. But yeah, you definitely want to work with a financial professional to get all this straight, because today we're talking about planning and managing your Social Security, and really about avoiding costly mistakes. Because if you don't do it right the first time, it could cost you a lot over your lifetime, over your whole retirement. That really adds up. And I mean, it can make the difference in tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, it sure can. And, that's why, you mentioned something also, Tony, and that's taxes, right? As well. I don't think a lot of people realize that you do pay, you potentially can pay taxes, on your Social Security benefits. I'm going to use a married, but if you're married and you make under $32,000 in retirement, then yes, you will not pay any taxes on your Social Security.
Wow.
If you earn between $32,000 and $44,000, then 50% of your Social Security benefits taxed. And if you make over $44,000 as a married couple, then up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can be taxed. And when I say, up to 85%, that just means 85% of your benefit is taxed at whatever tax rate that you actually fall into. Right.
Right.
So, but I'm amazed on how many people are shocked when they find out that you do have to potentially pay taxes on Social Security. And the one thing that I will say, because you hear all these little things about, Social Security maybe run into issues in 3032, 3033, right? But I do think one of the things we'll see is up to 100% of your taxes will be taxed at some point in time. And that's why it's so important that, you have a tax strategy, you work with an advisor to make sure that you're doing all the right things, to pay yourself rather than pay Uncle Sam.
Well, yeah, I mean, you want to keep as much money in your pocket as possible and minimize that tax burden. And that's the problem with a lot of retirement accounts. But Social Security, I think a lot of people go into it not realizing that Social Security can be taxed as ordinary income in retirement. Up to 85% of your Social Security can be subject to tax, is what you're saying.
That's exactly right, Tony.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's why, again, it's why it's so important to work with an advisor. And here's the one thing: anytime we work with anybody, when I ask them how much money they need, they don't tell me the gross amount. They tell me what they need on a monthly basis, which is the net amount, which is net of taxes. So it's our job to work with you to find out what you're going to be paying in taxes to make sure you're getting that monthly income in order to cover, your net amount. And obviously, the less you pay in taxes, the less you got to take out of your retirement accounts in order to satisfy your income needs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And so you've got to look at that, what you're going to need in retirement, how much you're going to need to have come out of the other accounts, where that money's coming from, and your Social Security. That's why it's so important to figure that out first and maximize that. And Corey, speaking of maximizing your Social Security, which is what we're talking about, avoiding Social Security mistakes so you can get the most out of it. You have, and we've talked about this on past shows, but it's so important. I'm glad we're revisiting Social Security today. We haven't dived into this topic in depth in a while, but you're offering a Social Security Maximization Report that you can run for our listeners, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So one of the nice parts about our Maximization Report, Tony, is we're going to be able to show you year by year when's the best time for you to be, when's the best time for you to actually take your benefit or file for your benefits. And that it's not going to matter whether you're married, whether you're divorced, whether you're single, whether you're actually maybe receiving some type of state pension, you're going to have the windfall. We can calculate all that for you. It's a great report for you to make a decision before you file for your Social Security benefits. That's what I always say is if you could just be educated, and that's what this report allows you to do, is be educated before you file before you actually start receiving those Social Security benefits. It's so important. Again, our report is a Social Security Maximization Report. We can provide that to you. There's obviously there's no cost to be able to receive that. We just need a little bit of information about what your Social Security benefits look like. We can run that report for you and your spouse, or if you are single, we can do that just for you as well.
Yeah, there you go. And I think it's so valuable. And, whether you're working with Corey already or you don't have a financial advisor, if you do, you've got to get the Social Security figured out because it's the foundation. So what's another mistake or something we need to know about Social Security?
Well, here's probably the number one, Tony, and that's claiming benefits too early, which is obviously going to lead to reduced monthly payments, right? So if your full retirement age is 67, and now we're getting to the point anymore, if you were born after 1960, it is 67. So,
right.
If you actually file for your benefits at 62, you're only going to receive 65% of what you actually would receive at your full retirement age. If you're 65, you're only going to receive about 84%. If you're 67, of course, you're going to be able to receive 100%. And then obviously, if you do wait until 70, you're going to have about a 30% increase of what you would actually receive over your benefits. Now, there's a lot of months and years in between that 8-year period. Our Social Security report's going to be able to show you what's the best way to be able to optimize those benefits for you, but most importantly, also for your spouse as well. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But again, once you actually file, there's really no changing, Tony. So you only get one shot at this, and you want to be able to make sure that you do it the right way. That's going to benefit you and your family the best way possible.
Yeah, that's true. You want to maximize that amount again, and when you file, drastically affects that, right? I mean, what you're saying is, a lot of people, I read, what is it, that 90% of people are over file for Social Security as soon as they can, and they do the early filing at 62 so they can start getting Social Security checks at 62, thinking, I'm going to get more checks that way. But what they're doing is locking in a lower amount, a much lower amount, right?
They are. And when you actually look at it, I've run this number too many times, Tony.
Yeah.
We have what we call a break-even point, right? And the break-even point means if I start taking it at 62 versus I start taking it at 67, when do I, because a lot of people go, well, I want to make sure I'm going to get all the money I possibly can. I paid into it for all these years. I want to make sure I get it in case I pass away or whatever else. But usually that break-even point is usually always around 78, 79, right in that area. And all that means to you is if you wake up at age 79 or 80 and you did not choose 70, you chose wrong. because now you're actually giving money, leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
And here's the most important part. If you or your spouse don't do that, and there's a good chance one of you are going to live past 80, right? Because here's the other mistake a lot of people forget about is, when you're married and one spouse passes, you go from 2 Social Security checks to 1, and it's whichever one's higher. And if the main earner actually selected their benefits earlier rather than trying to delay or wait for a particular age, then that spouse, that living spouse is going to receive less benefits now, while they're in their 80s throughout, the rest of their lives, which could have a huge impact on that monthly income that spouse potentially does need.
Yeah. Yeah, that is gonna, you have to think of your spouse. You're right. Spousal benefits is something else that people make a lot of mistakes on with their Social Security because they file early. And especially if it's the husband who has the higher amount, women typically outlive men, right? So that means when the husband passes away, if he filed when he was 62, and the wife maybe doesn't have as high of earning years because maybe she took time off to raise the kids, that type of thing. Plus, she's probably going to outlive the guy by about 6 years. Those are the facts. The majority of the time that happens. That's what's typical anyway. Then she's going to need that higher amount. She's going to be out that whole amount. She can file for your amount, but if you filed and locked in a lower amount, it's not going to help her out. So it does make a difference. Now, there are times, everybody's situation is different though, right? And a lot of people think, well, my neighbor said, wait till your full retirement age, or my guy says, wait till your full retirement age at 66 or 67. My guy says, file early. Some people say you got to wait till 70 because that's when I get the highest check, or because of my spouse. But really, everybody's different, and it can vary a lot because every month it changes, right?
It does. And here's the one thing I would say, Tony, is don't make a decision financially, especially on Social Security, by some water cooler talking, right? You don't want to be talking at work to some of your employers and you're going to make a decision based upon what they say. Work with an advisor. We have the tools, and we can actually educate you before you make the decision. Or don't do it over the holidays when you're having dinner with your family and your father-in-law tells you the best way in order to be able to take your Social Security benefits. They might not know your entire situation. So, if you work with an advisor, we're going to run that report for you, and we're going to do what's in your best interest. So that's one thing that I would say. And the other part that I would, I don't think a lot of people truly understand, Tony, too, is, a spouse, we were talking about spouses here a second ago, but the spouse is eligible to take up to 50% of their spouse's Social Security benefit at the full retirement age, if theirs is actually less than that 50%. So, when you're working with an advisor, you want to make sure you understand that, because yes, you might be entitled to 50%, but if you take the spousal benefit, for example, at 62, now you're actually losing. Now you're only going to get 65% of that 50%. There's a lot of percentages in there, and
yeah,
but
a lot of numbers.
Yeah, but the whole point of it,
Corey, I was told there would be no math today.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the whole point of it is you need to make sure not only you understand yours, but even how your spouses work, and that's what an advisor is going to be able to show you as well. So, make sure you just understand it before you actually trigger your benefits. And we're talking about filing early. So let's just say you want to file at 62, or you want to file before your full retirement age. You also need to know the rules that if you do go out and get another job or a part-time job, is how much money can I make per year before I actually maybe lose some of my Social Security benefits. So, if you're not at your full retirement, so basically we're talking about from 62 to 66, you only can earn about $22,320 a year, or about $1,860 a month. Wow. If you do exceed that, for every $2 that you exceed that by, they're going to take one Social Security benefit dollar away from you. Now, the year that you turn 67, or your full retirement age, now you can make up to $59,520. And again, they're going to take away $1 for every $3 that you earn if you go above that number as well. So,
because a lot of people want to go back to work
right.
in retirement, or they want to keep working full time, but yet file at 62 or 66 and work till they're 70. That's not going to work, because they're just going to take that money back away from you, right?
That's
if
exactly
you're
right.
Earning too much. Yeah,
that's exactly. It's another good reason to work with an advisor. There's nothing. Maybe you do want to retire early. Maybe you have health issues or something makes sense to be able to start taking your Social Security early. But you also need to make sure you understand what you can make, because there's no reason to file if you're going to lose all your benefits.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yep.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah. And, and here's the other part. Our job is to work with our clients. We want to be able to set you up in a situation where Social Security isn't your sole source of income in retirement, right?
Yeah.
And the earlier that you can work with an advisor and start saving, it's going to be a lot easier for you to have the retirement that you want to. So I would highly recommend that you seek some professional advice, whether it's giving us a call here at 614-760-0670, or you can also visit our website at safeharboroh.com to schedule that complimentary, no obligation meeting with us. Social Security is kind of difficult, and it's complex. So I think it's going to be in your best situation to work with an advisor that knows how it works, knows your situation, and can actually lay down a Social Security plan for you to make sure that you're going to maximize those benefits in retirement.
Yeah, it's huge. Obviously, Social Security is the foundation of retirement income. You have to figure that piece out, and then you build on that. And I know, Corey, that's how you build a solid retirement plan for all of your clients. And you can do the same for our listeners and viewers out there. I want to mention viewers because we're now on your YouTube channel.
Right.
We're doing videos of the show each week, which when you told me you wanted to do that, I'm like, well, I've always been told I have the perfect face for radio. What are we talking about here? Yeah, I'm going to need a lot more money if you want to put this mug on video, but no, but it is so important. So one more time before we go, let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you and get that Social Security Maximization Report.
Yeah, for our listeners and viewers out there, just give us a
Yeah.
call at 614-760-0670. Or again, you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. Again, all of our meetings are complimentary. There's no financial obligation. We're here to help. Social Security is complex. It's just one of the things that you really need to think about to make sure that you have a secure financial plan. And we're here to help and guide you to make sure that does happen for you, because everyone's situation is different. But we just, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you have the retirement that you want.
All right. Well, Corey, sounds great. And we're out of time. So that does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio with Corey Sickles.
Yeah, join us next week for another episode of Financially Fit Radio.